All right, guys, welcome to week 11. Thank you for telling me what that was. I've got week 12 here, which we'll talk about in a second, but a quick note on week 11. The recording is missing some chunks. There were some issues, and so the good news is that there was no point at which, when Marie was rendering the audio, that she had to really crane to hear anything. She had been I had to really mess with the volume to get any noise, and I know that you guys who watched these experienced that, but I think we're fixed because we've plugged directly into the computer instead of this thing. I mean, you guys don't need to know all that. I know what's going on in here. There's just a pig and a wires. But she says that the audio that was this on Thursday, and those of you guys who listen to it know this, but it's a little wonky. Please remind any students, and this was, we'll tell Katrina if she comes in, make sure their mic is muted when not contributed. So there were some moments that she could hear that were difficult to hear, and then there was a point at which a dog started barking, so that segment's gone, and she said, it was so interesting, and I said, oh my God, it's the most important part. It'll never be said again. It's the end of it. No, it's not. We will. It'll be great. So she had to cut that. And the other thing is that and I'm saying this even though Katrina's not here, is because I think if we can all remind ourselves that the mic thing, but the other thing is that if we don't think about the mic, then poor Katrina's face is the one that fills the screen. so while she's listening, and so anyway, I guess the share comes off, and then but the big thing is, and I hope that if I will try to remind myself to stop doing this, but this is my problem that's screwing this up. I'm apparently jacking with the volume level when previously recording presentations come on, and then I'm not doing anything with it afterwards, so it's down low, so she has to fix it. So help me, save me from myself. I wonder what B was going to be. And okay, so then we'll finish up the midterm project presentations, and then we'll go back to that lecture we started talking about last time, as well as look at specifically Sarah's response and her initial thinking about what she thinks she might do for her final project, and then talking with you guys about what you think might be yours. The following week, instead of having class, I'd like for us to have conferences, and those are optional, but the announcement has the information about that. Just email me if you would like to, and I hope you will, the times next week, which would be Monday the 11th, my dad's birthday, through Friday the 15th, the times that you can't meet, and then I'll create a schedule for that. In preparation for that, and just in preparation for your final project, I've created just 2 discussion areas for that week, and both of which are just about your final project. So we don't have a reading that week. We'll do our final reading, Kennard, the following week. So one of them is your final project, and this is the one that I would like you to spend a little bit of time with, at least before we meet, and if we're not going to meet, spend time in there anyway. It should take some time. It says, okay, yeah, you're ready. You're totally ready. This project, this particular discussion requires a good deal of your time, attention, space. So take time with it. In fact, I suspect much of what you generate in response to this prompt, you maybe lift directly from this discussion area into your earliest drafts of your final project. So instead of this this real-time recording, we're going to do one-on-one conferences. Again, optional, but just let me know when you're available. We'll set it up. I mean, I love to have these kinds of conversations. So in order to kind of give us some fodder to work with, go back to the assignment page. It's on the course website. Just look at the description. Basically, it's just an annotated bibliography for a project that you might that you can see yourself doing. And it can be an extension of your midterm project. It can be, it probably will deal with some of the kind of theoretical underpinning that you've been developing with respect to citizenship rhetoric. We are certainly moving into activist rhetoric, but the conversations about the rhetoric surrounding citizenship are just so compelling. And as I go back to this book on lynching after having these conversations with you guys, I mean, I loved it before, but it's a really meaty work in that context. But whatever direction you want to go. And then I said so do a little bit of that. And then Sarah got in quickly to talk about that prompt that I had for weeks 10 and 11. So she's the first one I saw other people have to, that asks you to look at what you had said or what others had said in previous weeks on our discussion threads, and also, you know, the things that you remember hearing, and sort of what pops to mind is like most interesting, most useful. And so Sarah posted something that I got excited about, and so I thought, you know, what might be useful potentially is sort of like a little back of the envelope thing that might show what an introduction to this final project might look like. So I can show you both how really exploratory and tentative this thing that I'm asking you to do is, but also and also how broad. We talked about that last time a little bit too. So yeah, so this is kind of my MacGyver kind of back of the envelope thing. It is well, it's a mess, but she asked a great question, and so I asked her, you know, what do you think is interesting? What are you beginning to see what your final project might look like, which I hope might be sparked in part by seeing something like that, because I mean, I could show you annotated bibliographies. Everybody's got models of them, but I really wanted to do one that worked from one of whatever starting place you wanted to deal with. We spoke last time about the different starting place, you know, the artifact or the research question or the whatever. So work on that. So, you know, so look at the assignment. What do you see you're being asked to do? What are you thinking of doing? To start looking at that kind of model thing and those ideas. And if you're encouraged or have some ideas at that point, talk a little bit about that. Sarah talks about, with respect to her own research project process, that she starts with the big ideas and works inward. That's my process. It might be yours, but you might go a different direction, and you might also come from multiple directions. This getting started is going back to the lecture, which I'll do, which I will do. That went too far. Which I'll do after you do your presentations. So, oh yeah, that's I did want to look at that. So, you know, you can start with artifacts or people or events or questions, and it can be a general, it can be specific. That's what we talked about last time, and I don't know if we were, if that's cut off or not. So she's asked, she says, I'll show you in a second, she starts in a couple of different places for that. I'm going to pop off this part right now and just look at her post, and then we'll get to the presentations. I hear a potential question coming up.
No, every time you do a presentation, I keep looking at him.
I know, we're all eager. Does that make you sit on it a little longer, man?
I'm just making him nervous. Oh, no, it's good.
So I'm just going to, instead of making Daniel flop sweat back there anymore, I'm going to just point out what I'm talking about here. And I won't read it. I'll read it later. But Sarah said here that she's thinking about a couple of topics. This is the middle paragraph. In regard to these two specific topics, which we'll talk about in a second, she's noticed she's really interested in ideas of good citizenship and what and how good citizenship is determined, sometimes by lynching. These topics lead me to questions like, how do tattoos and even the use of the bicycle influence society's perception of what makes a good citizen? How do these things fit into the discussions of good citizenship, whether directly or indirectly? How do visible tattoos affect one's ability to be a good citizen? How do the growing use of bicycle affect individual women's ability to act as a good citizen within their society? And so I plucked one of those and just ran with it to see, okay, God, this could go so many directions, thing, rhetoric, technology, and tattoos over time. And I was thinking, we'll talk about what you think the directions it could go. And our next step is to kind of look at keywords. But I also wanted to suggest that there's definitely a place in this, and I think in research often that might be more formal and finalized than this for your personal connections. I love to read that stuff, and it's increasingly appearing in publications. So anyway, so that is the final project. But before we final project, what is midterm project? How about we back up a little bit? And I will give Daniel this seat. We are ready to be dazzled. We will be. I know we will. That's exactly what you didn't want me to say.
There we go. My midterm project. So I posted this with a comment that I may have overthought this a little bit, but
That's what you guys do.
Here we go. So I've included two parts. I've got a picto chart, and I'll go through that first. My picto chart, I include some visuals, and I tried to use thing explainer language throughout, except for like the term citizenship. I kept that since that was the point, was to define that. So I'll open that first. So here's my picto chart. I titled it Citizenship Rhetoric, Complicating Citizenship Through Robots. So I'll just go through each section and read it, but I focus on robots and AI robots. So first section is definition. Being a member of a country means holding law papers and things, having rights tied to a country, understanding and adding to a people of the place, and staying true to what people of that place think is the right way to act and think. So I felt that kind of encompassed all the text. Again, with the definition, one must have all these points to be a full member of a place. So here I was trying to explain citizenship, but then later it got real complicated. So now humans and things can be members of a country, apparently. So I broke it down by text and also compared it to the robots. So Place Lone Star Rhetoric, 2018. This bottom corner explains the text. This book looks at how citizenship is about being from a place. The setting matters. If one says they are a citizen of a place, one is perhaps familiar with what it feels like to be from a place during a certain time with certain people, certain food and drink, etc. All add to the citizenship of a place. And so with robots, I'm looking at two places, Saudi Arabia and Japan. And why these two places? So Saudi Arabia is one of the richest countries in the world because of its black gold instead of oil. With its large pile of money, Saudi Arabia is planning on creating a future-like city where things that look and talk like humans but are not humans outnumber people. Creating this future-like city will change the way with words of place for the country, from being known for black gold to known for computers and things that look like humans but are not. And I'll explain in a minute what that robot is. Japan is also a rich country but is known for its computer and machine making. This is the country of Sony, Toyota, games played on a TV set or computer, and art. It's known for its computer areas in cities like Akihabara in Tokyo and Denden Town in Osaka, Japan. Japan also has a long history of machine people in their art books for children. With the number of people in Japan growing smaller as Japanese are not having many children, the country sees machine people as a way to help add to the number of people. So that's why those two places are important. So my next is women claiming the bicycle. First, the thing explainer of the text. This book looks close at citizenship and what it means to be a woman in the 1800s in the red, white, and blue country. Women's rights in Saudi Arabia are far behind those in the West world. In Saudi Arabia, only a few years ago were women allowed to drive cars. Women and people not from the country are not considered citizens. Sophia is a woman who is not human, given citizenship in Saudi Arabia on 8/25/2017. In the years since, she has been pushing for women's rights, but what rights does she have? If she is not really a woman, does she have more rights? Since Sophia is a member of the country, she has more rights than other real women. So this is a picture of Sophia.
It's kind of terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the context of we might finally have that ERA amendment passed.
Mm-hmm.
100 years ago. You know, it's not Saudi Arabia, but we're in that world.
Yeah.
It's slow moving.
I thought it was so crazy, you know, women don't have the rights, but this machine woman does have rights. So
wow, we can trust her.
Yep. And so moving on to papers, and I've got an image here of another AI. This is America by Paper 2016. This book looks at what it means to be a citizen in the law, or how to get citizenship by the law, and all the hard things that some people go through to get it. We see in this book a close look at citizenship through papers that the country wants one to have and that the law says one needs. The city of Tokyo gave Shibuya Mirai a card for a person who lives in a place, which is thing explainer for residency. Shibuya Mirai is a computer talking thing that looks like a human child but doesn't have a body. This is the first time for a thing to get this kind of card. This card is hard to get for someone not from Japan. And so you can see the card there. This is the child, and that's not really a person. It's a AI chatbot. And so in the same year,
it's not even a three-dimensional thing. It's
no, a chatbot. And Shibuya Mirai, Shibuya is the district of Tokyo, and Mirai means future. So it means like Shibuya's future. And so it's, I don't know. Some people see it as a publicity stunt, but it's, I mean, to give a chatbot residency card is a big thing. And so there's the document for that. So let me go back up. And so our next text, Good Citizens and Manners, Producing Good Citizens 2014 and Mental Hygiene Films 2000 or 1950s. Just to go back, this happened in the same year as Sophia gained citizenship, same year, 2017. So, and I put the dates because I thought it was interesting around, you know, we've got 2018, 2016 claiming the bicycle, 2016, so a year or so off. So Good Citizenship and Manners. Juan says, and I like this quote, so I put it in, through a close examination of disciplining mechanisms like citizenship and work, I examine how economic opportunities and expectations in the form of jobs and other resources of those trying to gain citizenship status shape the credentialing potential of literacy in the pursuit of citizenship, and likewise how literacy is used to mark a citizen's potential for productivity. So these things that are like humans but not are good members because they work hard, usually don't ask questions, and keep the ways of other members in the country. They can learn the other members' ways through computers. Perfect members? I mean, maybe. Sophia does not wear the head covering, which is what women wear in Saudi Arabia.
So interesting.
Women, I know, it's like, but they accept her. Women are not allowed to be out without this covering or without a man with them. Sophia breaks these laws, but is still made a member of the country. Mirai and things that are not humans in Japan are good members because they do not go against Japanese ways, which those from other countries sometimes do. So are they perfect? You know, citizens. My summary of all of this: while considering the meaning of citizenship and thinking about how language is used to talk about citizenship, I remembered reading about an AI machine person named Sophia who became a citizen of Saudi Arabia in 2017. Around this same year, I remember also hearing about the AI machine named Shibuya Mirai, who was giving a place member card by the city area of Shibuya in Tokyo, Japan. This led me to wonder, if AI machine persons are allowed to be citizens, what does it say about our understanding of the word citizenship? I was able to see ties between these AIs becoming citizens in each of our books for the first half of the year of our class. These ties cloud the meaning of citizenship in that while AI machines can get citizenship quite easily, humans meet great problems because of not having the important papers, meeting accepted ways of doing things, accepted boy and girl ways of acting, couldn't use gender, so, and bad thoughts towards where they are from instead of bias. Machine persons without the important papers coming from a different country, Sophia was made in Hong Kong, and not always meeting accepted ways of doing things, in the case of Sophia, are just given citizenship for, or place rights. Perhaps these machine person citizens will help countries and groups of people question the meaning of citizenship and who is allowed to become a citizen and why. So that's and those are my references there.
What are some of the titles?
Well,
the ones that we read.
Yeah, these are just the books.
Okay.
I've got it on my paper. I've got some other resources, but yeah, it was really hard to explain all that.
Yeah, but it's very clear in the center, so compelling. And at the end, I try not to drive you guys' resource. You, Ireland will never leave your life. I'm not pushing that, but I, final project, and I love the telephone thing, but a final project could do such an interesting job with the question that you ask about what does this mean if we're going to give robots or
Not even
machine people.
machine people. I love that. I think that's a great title.
Yeah.
Because there's machinery, and also in conversation with like one. I mean, these are like literally manufactured, and so how much beautiful control do you have over a good citizen if it's just made the way there's no ethnicity to get messy. I mean that brings up some beautiful conversation with lynching, right? Where's whiteness in this? These are white robots. Wait, they're not even Japanese features, are they?
Well, the chatbot is. It looks like a 7-year-old Japanese child. Yeah.
Saudi Arabian.
She's supposed to look like Katharine Hepburn or something. Or Audrey Hepburn is who she's supposed to look like. Yeah, but
that says interesting things too, doesn't it?
And that note that she was made in Hong Kong.
That's true.
Because
right now that's so interesting too.
Import, right? You imported a citizen, so it's like immigration. Sort of, yeah. Because if I don't know if Hong Kong has anything like we have, but if we have birthright citizenship. So if you were constructed here, you're American.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you go live in Saudi Arabia, you got more citizenship paperwork than I can get. Yeah. Right?
And then now she can apply technically to citizenship in America if she wanted to.
Sure.
I mean, because she's a citizen now, another nation. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it brings all kinds of questions. And
too many questions.
And I mean, the machine can just download cultural expectations and like, like we talk about place, like if you're from a place, well, they download videos of people from that place and how they interact, and now they know the rhetoric of the place.
And there's no sort of lived experiences that they are, denying or pushing against, or family members that they're like, ignoring, or there's no loss. It's just new programming.
So it's like citizenship. Does that really mean?
Wow.
Does that mean anything anymore? If, a robot and a chatbot can have citizenship? I mean, there's Audrey Hepburn.
It is.
So it's not even tied to a body in the Japanese example. No. There isn't a physical body.
Well, I watched a video of, because of the declining population in Japan, where they went over and were interviewing like the one of the robotics guy at one university, and they're trying to create robots in like Sophia in Japan. They have them already, but they're thinking about creating them to fulfill that decline in population, because they have such strict immigration laws and don't allow foreigners to become citizens very often or gain residency. It's very difficult, that they would rather have robots that they create.
So to what end? So in America, in the South, they gave partial citizenship to the Southern, or to the slaves, so that they could count as part of the census, so they could get resources. That's, I'm sure, not what these guys are. Are we talking about needs for work, or?
I think all of it, like working needs and needs for family, and like taking care of the elderly. Because like someone said, do you imagine like in the future, you know, the family of being, you know, having a child, a dog, and a robot maybe, and like the robots can take care of the family and help out and stuff.
Until the singularity.
Yes, until that happens. But there was a lot of articles on like, what does it mean? Like, for example, that's the one about the AI boy. AI boy granted residency in central Tokyo. Let's see, are robot citizens a reality? Japan thinks so. Saudi Arabia made a robot a citizen. Now she's calling for women's rights. Everything you need to know about Sophie, the world's first robot citizen. What exactly does it mean to give a robot citizenship? So there's a lot of interesting text. That was in 2019. Or no, 2017, sorry. So around that same time when it happened, people were questioning citizenship and what all that means.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, that's even though we're dealing with in our imitative biographies, we're talking about rhetorical historiography, you do need to know about the things that, you know, so that would definitely include even these, newspaper articles and stuff.
And like Japan, I've watched a lot of different animes and things, and robots are a big part of that, like culture. Like there are animes from like the 70s where whole civilizations have transitioned to robots in order to survive, and so it's kind of built into the society, this idea of robots. And so it's not that, I guess, that's strange for them to think of robots as citizens, or AIs as citizens. But to me, it's interesting that a real person can't gain citizenship, but a robot can, and they're more happy about that. But it goes back to good citizenships and good manners, because, this robot can adhere to Japanese ideas of good manners and what it means to be Japanese, whereas the foreigner might not be able to, so we'll accept the robot.
American, we're not they're not going to hand the business card, right?
Those loud Americans, you know what they're doing. Yeah, so.
That's great. That's so interesting.
So, maybe I complicated it.
No, it was very clear, and it's just so compelling and challenging.
Thank you. And then I had that PDF that goes into normal language of all of that.
Okay.
Instead of just thing explainer language.
Well, I thought the thing explaining was very clear.
I had to use clouded instead of like complicated.
Oh, that works. Yeah.
Clouded.
Yeah, that works. Actually, in fact, I think that's even more descriptive.
Works that you excited it's on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on there.
I want to read some of those.
Yeah,
Cool.
It's posted on my. Cool. Yeah, and I kept finding lots of different things.
That's a rabbit hole for the weekend, I think. Yeah.
There's a video. one of the sources of the YouTube video where they're talking about robots in Japan and everything and citizenship. So maybe I can do that for the final project.
I think so.
And like a lot of, even with phones, like the AI systems for the phone, like Siri and Alexa, those are supposed to be female voices.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's up with all of this?
So why?
Do you guys have an Alexa?
I don't.
Oh my God! If you get around someone and you play that thing 20 questions, it'll make you want to leave the house and just burn it down.
Why?
Because it says I'm thinking, what are you thinking of? I'm thinking of, it's an animal. She asked me questions that, and what I was thinking of was I was cutting chicken. And so I wasn't even talking about like a live animal. I was talking about meat. Yeah. But so she said, she asked me a few questions, and then she said, is it hamburger? And that freaked me out. And then she said, is it a tire? I didn't quite understand that. but she kept getting it. I mean, from like way out there. She got from a car to a rock to my kitchen sink. And it's like, so I know it's just like, huge data mining, but are we that predictable?
Well, yeah, you rule out broad categories.
No, but it's
rule out, you could get down to man-made structures.
It wasn't like that. No. It wasn't like that at all. It was all over the map. It was like she just started there and there. It's nothing like playing one with a human. It is so freaky, so scary. We kept trying to stump her, and she said, "No, it's an octopus. It's a porcupine."
Maybe robots should be citizens.
Maybe
they will.
Yeah, it could be. Oh. Okay, mind's blown, man. You just broke us, Daniel.
That's it for me.
Okay.
And I was thinking back to our digital humanities class and thinking about the punk, what was it, the cyberpunk stuff, Elon Musk and all this stuff. It was fun.
Love it. I love it. Okay. Did we see Sarah? See who did present? Yes, Sarah presented. Like I said, Katrina, Angela's not going to present. Daniel just presented. Kendall's, we're going to have her present. And so Savannah.
So this is my infographic. And for my infographic, I wrote a poem. And then I described each book or a piece of literature that we have discussed in class off to this side that correlates with each part of the poem. And before I start, I just wanted to talk about how I chose the pictures. So each picture that I chose is in the shape of a state, or at least it reminds me of a state or a country, how it's not like a square or circle or perfect shape. And then the picture is a location, which has a lot to do with citizenship because citizenship is very place related. So that's why I did that. So I'm going to read my poem all the way through, and then I'll go through and discuss the parts of literature that goes with it. A sense of belonging. If not, you will be longing. Some are born, others are torn in a stateless, countryless life. Citizen to a place. Time is all it takes. Make somewhere your home. Be there on your own. Reading will make it easier on you. Family on the outside. An idea to be tried. Stand in line or pay a fine. Belonging will never be free. If you win, you'll have rights. A whole world of new lights. You can have a job. It'll never stop. With papers, anything is possible. A person, a friend, it's who you really are. A citizen will never be too far. Do it right, clear your head, do what the Mental Floss video said. You belong where you feel at home. Right. So for this first part of the poem, I talked about how some people are born and others are torn without a home. And in producing good citizens, it talks about how literacy is really important for becoming a citizen. So if you don't have a sense of belonging, lots of people are longing to be citizens. So that's kind of where that part came from. And then I said, being literate is the way to become a citizen. You will never be a great citizen, according to the text, if you do not have literacy skills and or a job to use them. Literacy levels help citizens understand where they belong in society. It's basically what producing good citizens was about, is how literature fits into our lives as citizens. This next part of the poem, I talk about how inventing place and how anywhere your home is, it's because you make it there. In Inventing Place, it talks about a lot about Texas and Texas literature. And so it's basically, Rhetoric helps citizens identify with the places they belong. Nostalgia and place-related memorabilia connect people to their homes. Home is where the heart is, and where your heart is, you belong. Proclaiming the bicycle, it's all about the sense of belonging and like how society changes to fit that over time. And claiming the bicycle is basically how women identify as belonging in society. And I know it doesn't really go with this part of the poem, but that's just where I put it. So for claiming the bicycle, I said citizenship is also a sense of belonging. Sometimes this belonging is based solely on where you fit in, like how in claiming the bicycle, where you fit in is how you feel you fit in. Women started feeling like they fit in whenever they started being able to ride bicycles. So your identity and how society views you has a lot to do with factors you have no control over. People don't choose their gender, but it still changes how they feel they belong in their citizenship within society. But people adapt over time, and eventually people started including women. Eventually we'll learn to accommodate people. Right, so American by paper, it's just talks about how papers are required in order to be a citizen. It's a literal definition of citizenship. And so I talked about in this part of the poem how people have rights when they have the papers. With papers, anything is possible. So documents can make or break you. Without the papers, you will never be a true citizen. Citizenship is earned. Earn it by paying with your time, standing in line, getting the documentation. You are American by having the papers only. Right, and then the last one is the hygiene films. I put this part directly into the poem because it wants you to do exactly what it says. It's kind of like a rule book to being a good citizen. So in the video, it talked about keep your mental health up, follow the standards set by society, don't break the rules, don't step out of turn, be a good citizen, be like everyone else, fit the mold, stay healthy, stay active, all those different things it talked about in the hiding films and how it wants you to be a good citizen there. So that is what I did for my midterm project. Thanks for listening.
Your midterm projects are really kind of develop a kind of a theoretical apparatus for understanding this topic that we've been exploring, citizenship rhetorics. Your final project doesn't have to make extensive direct use of that framing, but it seems really likely that it's probably going to play some role, in some ways significant, in some ways not. But I talked about last time about starting point. If you start with a thing that you really like Angela had this recipe from her grandmother, or just kind of general categories like Sarah's we'll talk about in a second is interested in tattoos. And we talked about cookbooks and events and so forth. What is it that I wanted to, oh yeah, we talked about that. Okay, so once you have a starting place, then you're going to do some research. So you have your starting place, and I was going to talk about the cards. I'll come back to those because we have a different thing to work with. Let's definitely come back to this, but I'm gonna look at Sarah's. I want to talk about Daniel's, and then I want to talk some more specifically about Brian's as well as an example. But so that okay. Let's talk about keywords then. Let's talk about the starting place and keywords. And for that, I'm going to go back to Sarah's post, which I'll read in full now, and then show you the way I responded. So basically, I know you're prepared to do this because you've already brought forward a number of really compelling, important projects. a little reminder, rhetorical historiography is a few things, but one way to think about it is just look at how text, whether those are analog, like a mental hygiene film, or digital, like a chatbot citizen. And those are things or events or whatever that have historically shaped our lives. And that's, things like the tech manuals for bicycles, citizenship, education, the ways in which, according to violence against Black bodies has helped deeply racialize the American identity as a white one. And then, and so forth. So these are the major questions that to ask. How is it that we analyze texts that shape our lives? Things like the robots being granted citizenship. How do we analyze events happening in our lives, and how do we then, based on these analyses, going back to what Brian was talking about at the end of class last time, actually do something about it, like change gender inequities. So Sarah says that thinking about previous discussions and various topics that have been discussed, there have been two that really grabbed my attention. The conversations really struck me the most was the conversation about tattoos as archives. I just love it. What did you call them? Archives? So we said that. I've thought back to that discussion several times the last few weeks. I think several people have. It's really made me think about my own tattoos. And I'm a big proponent, and I think a lot of us are, if there is a personal connection that inspires you, do it, and also make that visible, because there's also some knowledge to be drawn from that, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. And also the inserting some kind of description of your subject position is important as kind of a feminist research methodology. Anything that really deals with sort of the idea that power imbalances have to be addressed in some way requires us to accept the fact that we all have biases, so there is no objective place to stand. So if I'm writing, as I often do, about African American activism in rural spaces, and I am a middle-class white woman who lives in an urban space, then I got to disclose that. So, but also there's a lot of knowledge to be pulled from that. So she said that it's made me think about my own tattoos and the stories that go along with them, which I would love to hear. And as I suggest a place for that, as well as the tattoos of people that I'm close to and the stories that go along with theirs. I didn't think about that closely enough. It needn't be necessarily historical, but that's anyway. But I was also really drawn to the conversation about bicycles and the opportunities that the bicycle represented for women at the time. Both of these topics have stayed in my mind over the course of the semester thus far. I found myself mulling over these topics several times over the last couple of months. In regard to these two specific topics, as well as the other things I have discussed this semester, some of the recurring themes that I noticed are in the ideas of the good citizen and what and who determines good. That I think is a question we've been talking about, especially rigorously for the last couple of weeks, and like who defines it and who controls it. And
I want to use the word stigma, but it might be too big around, because she's talking about two separate ideas, but they're begging to just knock them together. Because if you've ever had the societal view of a heavily tattooed man versus a heavily tattooed woman, it's very different.
How so? But depending on era, I guess, and place. But
even now,
yeah,
the expectation. I mean, this is a little crass, but I'm gonna do it anyway. What do you call it? A lower back tattoo on a woman.
Yeah.
There's no analog to that for boys. There just isn't.
Not.
There's never been. And you can trace it with men, those blotches you'll see on old men, the baby tattoos that weren't even really done very well. Right? For them, it's a way to tie them to a period, to do a thing. So it's definitely an archive there. But I might, and this is a very budding argument, argue that women are excluded from that entirely.
From membership
from
through.
It being a bonding thing, from it being because of the way society looks at it.
So interesting.
Because there's, like I said, there's never. It's already been. I mean, I've heard the term. I had a girl that I knew when she was in high school. She was blonde and a cheerleader. 5 years out, she was black hair and tattooed, like you wouldn't even recognize her. And her personal experience, like words she would hear people mutter when she would walk by, things like gross, and so because she was just very openly tattooed, and I never hear that. I never hear it. I've never heard.
I haven't either. It's just becoming so commonplace for like tattoo sleeves and necks. I mean, sometimes, like I said, their face is all done. I'll hear gross or something like that.
Yeah, but I've never heard it. I've never heard anything bad. I mean, because they go away.
Well,
right?
they do, but it's also just not. There's no.
It's not as bad as it was, but there's still a good bit of that going on.
Yeah, and I wonder too that's so interesting because I wonder, talking about, it is terrible that did with the tramp stamp thing, but you're right, there isn't an equivalent. And does that mean then tattoos are more likely to exclude and objectify women?
They brand them. I mean, because just look at the words being used. Like, it's associated with the behavior, and it's sexual. It's tramp. That's tramp trollop. It's a baby step from prostitute.
And then that's
sexualized in a way. And I don't know this would be worth looking into. Is I've never known a man with a lower back tattoo. Is there a reason for that? Is it right? Has that bled into like the male tattoo getting ethos that's an area men will avoid tattooing?
Just a couple of nights ago, I was listening to this comedy podcast, and this guy who's on there he's a musician and producer, and he's spent a lot of years living in the guest house of this world famous tattoo artist. And he has tattoos everywhere. And one of the jokes they said was he has a Navy anchor, I guess like Popeye, as a tramp stamp, and that got a lot of laughs. Because clearly he doesn't, or if he does, then it's so uncommon that it is a joke. Because these don't. And it is interesting to see, at my age, the Generation X, tattoos were really not cool at all. And until, I don't know when would it have been, I was an adult, the 90s maybe, they started showing up.
I remember my high school teacher was always like, man, why are y'all getting tattoos? That's such a 90s thing. He would always say that. That's what he would say to us all the time.
That is true. That's when it started happening. It's probably like kind of the grunge launch. Yeah.
He would always say that to people he saw with their
tattoos. So 90s.
So 90s. What are you doing? I thought that was funny.
It's a decade that mainstreamed a lot of counterculture stuff. Skateboarding. That's when Tony Hawk blew up. That's when all of that happened. So it was a 10-year period where previously not quite like underclass, but there's a word for the margin type behavior.
Yeah, right. This was like in the kind of bar that guy in Lone Star Lyrics wanted to be in, and
for sure.
And the prisons
with that got famous, so it became less.
The rise of internet culture. No, I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know why it happened, and it was sort of startling when it started to happen, and then what does that mean? And I mean, I know that from Kim and Cooper's dissertation, which I'll just I'll tell Sarah to look at. It's in a previous thing, but Kim and Cooper wrote about tattoos, rhetorics of tattoos, and she herself is married to a tattoo artist, gorgeous tattoos up and down her arms, and she said she's also classically beautiful. But she said that the same thing, that there's that she's treated a lot differently, and she's got so many tattoos that it is difficult to cover them. but and then but mostly her dissertation was about tattoo artists and tattoo culture, contemporary
That'd be
ones.
interesting because, like, I know the gentleman who's done the majority of my work. 2 rules: no band names and no female names.
Because of the temporary.
He won't tattoo a band name because you'll hate him later, and not a girl. Daughter, he'll do, but wife, he won't. He will not tattoo your wife's name on you.
Interesting.
What if you get divorced?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to put on you. Daughter, he'll do. That's so it's not just all girls, but.
What about drunk bros coming in? No, he won't do those. I bet no. Anything that they're going to regret. Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be fascinating to look at. How many tattoo artists have rules like that, or if they don't, if they sit around and talk about it, I can't believe I did this. This guy came in and wanted this, and I couldn't tell him no, right? That would be. I'd be interested to hear about that.
The same guy says he keeps going over to his friend's house, and she'll say, "So what do you want, man?" And they'll spend 11 hours, doing a cat's face or something like that. She said he had a smiley face put in his mouth, and they asked him, "Do you go to the dentist?" Yes. A little surprise in there, a little happy face inside his lip.
Oh wow!
But
that hurt.
So and I mean the place I went was I started to think, okay, well, I'll show you. She says that, so I'm not sure these are topics that I would like to specifically focus on for my final project. And this is a good starting place. I mean, these are kinds of things that are on my mind. I don't know if I want to pursue them, which I think Danielle came in saying, I'm interested in these things, but I'm not sure if I want to pursue it for the final project. And so don't feel bullied into it, but it's interesting, right? I mean, I do hope you do something else with it, even if you don't do it this semester.
They extended the Southwest Popular American Culture Association call for papers till the 21st.
You have to submit.
They'll love that.
I
don't know specifically what panel, but it's blanket. All their calls got extended. It wasn't just particular panels because somebody told me that, and I went and looked. It's right on their call for papers.
Brian's going, as you know, so yeah,
that'd be great.
They crossed it out and they put 11/21. So what's it? The 7th? Yeah, SWPACA.
Pop culture. Those of you guys who want to submit these kinds of things you're talking about, rhetorics of tattoos, all of this stuff. So I'll post actually I'll show those of you guys who are watching this recording. So
they took my non-existent digital humanities prototype project thing.
Well, that's the way it works. They want to see the ideas. It's really not that. Let's see, copper paper.
Yeah, the 21st they extended. It'll be right on that page.
Oh, come on.
They did last time I went in 2016. They ended up extending it, but they never.
See, so it doesn't have a prompt. This just says we're taking proposals.
Submission of proposals are due. Is that what I'm reading? Far away from.
It's just a call. It's an open. Okay, it's nearly 70 subject areas, offers monetary awards for the best prize. So that's graduate paper award.
Under submission of proposals.
Is that where the call is? Above that. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that was the line.
Gotcha.
It doesn't look crossed out on yours. It looks like they just listed both. But when I pulled it up yesterday, it says October 31st, and then it's right next to it.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking for a prompt. If they had like a prompt.
Well, they've changed the way they do it. As you scroll down, it's broken by heading.
Right. I see. Okay. So adaptation, Alfred Hitchcock, The American West.
But that's under film, television, and media. You go lower, there'll be a bigger division. Right.
Oh, this might be us. Ooh, beats counterculture hipsters. Crafting and craft culture. Crime and culture. Oh my God, I want to go to occultism. That's so fun. Okay, you guys have to go to this. And hey, Sarah, fashion, style, appearance, and identity. There's yours. The food stuff, yeah.
And you get the more detail, and they changed their submission. You don't submit through the website anymore. It takes you to like a dashboard, and you can monitor your proposal from there, but you submit it through their dashboard. You register for it. They just want basic stuff: your name, what school you're affiliated with. If you say you're a student, they take independent scholars. Like they because when they print your name tag, it'll say that independent scholar. So.
War and culture, identities and cultures. This might be yours. Asian popular culture. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of people have.
It was a women, gender, and something was the last in that one you were just in.
Right. Okay. So this is a lot of people go to this one for and politics. A lot of people go as an early stardom and fandom as one of the first conferences they go to. They're always apparently a lot of fun. I've never been, but a lot of our people go, and a lot of people, travel together, sometimes in a van from the school, and as you do as a graduate student, just cram as many people into a hotel room as you can. It's fun. So
right there, women, gender, and
there we go. Right. Okay, thanks. Yeah. All scholars to submit proposals in any aspect of women, gender, sexuality, and literature, film, digital, and online, as well as general culture. Given the strong showing of work on gendered issues in cinema in recent years, we hope to continue this tradition, but also to diversify into new and unconventional areas, especially with the addition of roundtable sessions on a variety of popular topics. So I'm happy to share to help. Maybe Brian, would you be willing to share your proposal?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Let's find a place to do that. But so we have until November 20th. Okay.
20th. Okay.
Yeah.
I was in the ballpark.
Yeah, so that's this Wednesday in a couple of weeks. So do that. I mean, these projects are definitely worth it. And when you propose a paper, it can always be a project in development. I mean, Dr. Palshik was talking about a presentation that she was the one she delivered in London at the Working Class Conference that was in its earliest stages, and it's very common to say, so I'm really just getting started on this project, but here's how I envision it, and maybe Brian, you could say what you're presenting.
Yeah, I had a prototype from a digital humanities class with a Russian science fiction work that takes place in the metro tunnels under Moscow. And the point of the project that I would discuss making is a way to overlay the existing topography, like where the stops are now, versus the behavior of the characters in the post-apocalypse. The home base is underneath their equivalent of like a World's Fair. And in the book, obviously, that's all demolished, and that's where they fight giant rats. So it's underneath the point where Russia promotes its propaganda. It's the monument of it to their achievement, agriculture, cosmonauts, all the great things the Russian people have done is what it is now. And in this post-apocalyptic world, that's where they fight the giant rats underneath. Well, everybody lives underneath this.
I love it. That might be an interesting final project. I wonder if kind of rhetorical historiography of the Russia's World Fair, Moscow World Fair or something.
I want to see if we have anything in our library or any way to get anything on that.
We have such a good interlibrary loan department.
Because I'm going to need better sourcing for this. It's going to, I'm going to need books about this. I'm going to need.
Well, it's
not necessarily for the project, for the presentation, for future, for work I'm doing.
Sure.
After that's
absolutely.
I'm not putting such a I need it for February. No, but I need to make sure I'm at least seeing that this stuff is out there.
Right, and February should be serving your larger goals for sure. And so and I think what you're I think spending some time on understanding the World's Fair, and oh my God, do read that Devil in the White City. I just can't recommend it highly enough. Also, I want to recommend the plow over the Bones or something book I'm reading right now. It's a Nobel Prize winner book about this Polish woman in this very isolated village and who believes deeply in astrology, and there were 2 murders in her little small community. Not murders, deaths. One choked on a chicken bone. The other looked like a DWI and fell into a well head first. But in both cases, there were deer prints all around. And she's certain that the animals are killing these people to get them back for treating them badly, including, I guess, stuffing a chicken bone down this guy's throat. It is so much fun. I love this book so much.
That one's Plow.
Plow the. Seriously, it's a long title. Oh, I have it on my phone. This is really important, guys. I'm sorry.
Plow the Bones of the Dead.
That's it. Yeah. So much fun. And I will let you know if the deer did it. Yeah, I can't say it either right now. Yeah, so much fun. All right, so in Abigail, Snickerdoodle, Scratch grabs my attention. So close to what I've experienced from growing up in the South. It's a Southern drama at its finest, and like the comedy which sprang from it, the truth, the matter makes it stand out in memory and hold up to it. She's really interested in the concept of fitting in, which I really like keywords like homogenous, diverse, tradition, change, counterculture, human rights. I mean that do with that, but that or really does really, I think, speaks to those things in some interesting ways. Like, how do we keep the kind of us and them dynamics alive? That rhetoric. Show them some pictures of lynching and tell them they had it coming. Let's see. She said that she's really interested in community activism because I love this, because it's a bureaucratic puzzle of ineptitude that forces people to advocate for themselves and be fought tooth and nail on it. I don't think Brian knows anything about that. So, let's see. I'm much more interested in this topic than I previously considered. That is helped by a recent event in Kansas City. A neighborhood had a street named Paseo from its original founding, and the city decided to rename it Martin Luther King Jr. The citizens from this neighborhood are mostly Black, which is an important factor, and still decided the puzzlement of city officials to keep the original name. They held an overwhelming vote one day with 70% of the voters deciding to keep the original Paseo name because of its historical significance. It's beyond comprehension how officials can decide to make change. We're known as being asked for, especially against the residents' wishes. Anyway, she also mentions the anti-health and anti-stigma campaigns that we usually do 3 things, keep it towards. Mental therapy, mental health. Yes, rhetorics of mental health. There's so much interesting stuff out there, and it's really interesting. There's one project that I'm just really drawn to. I think it's fascinating. Is this study of the rhetoric surrounding the changes that were eventually and finally made to the diagnostic psychiatric disorder manual. I'm not sure what it's called. Yes, yeah, something like that. In 76, I think, that still classified any sort of non-straight behavior as mental illness, and that this huge fight that went on and all of the kind of paperwork that it went through, and how they were able to make those changes, and then all the fallout that came from it. So I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to turn to Brian and Daniel.
Quick, have you seen this Richardson and Ragland article?
What's that one?
It's called Stay Woke, the Language and Literacies of Black Lives Matter Movement.
No, I don't know.
The reason I like it is because look what they did with Tamir Rice and Emmett Till, the image.
Oh, that's interesting, huh? Honey, how's it good? Please find a place to post these things. I need to write something to tell you guys to share articles and stuff, because that's so related to OR.
Well, that's what. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's exactly what you put that. Yeah. Let's see. I'm just going to call it resources.
to share PBT, and then things that you guys can mine, because you're probably going to know a lot about each other's topics and you'll run across each other's stuff.
We read this in Justice.
Oh,
So
you did? Okay.
This was
Good.
We did this, I want to say 3 weeks ago, and it has my favorite modern image. This has won all the awards. You'll remember this one.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
This was like the picture. Oh, yeah. That was everywhere for like a short period of time. And then, like most things, we buried it under.
Yeah, well.
But.
So I'm going to go to the list of questions because I only just plucked one, not because these others weren't really good and not because these others didn't inform what, I was explaining. And then again, remember, she's thinking in terms of like exploring contemporary experiences with tattoos and the people that she knows in her world who have tattoos. She says, how do tattoos influence society's perception of what makes a good citizen? How do these things fit into the discussion of good citizenship, whether directly or indirectly? How do visible tattoos affect one's ability to be a good citizen? Or is that be understood or seen as a good citizen? How do the growing use of the bicycle affect individual women's ability to act as a good citizen within their society? Or be perceived as one would be too. So I say, okay, love the question. Let's return to this question when we meet together as a group. So ta-da, listen, we're here. So I took this question. She said, how do tattoos and influence the society's perception of what makes a good citizen? And I suggested that maybe she could push that even further to dive into a rhetorical historiography, maybe something like what do tattoos mean in a particular place or an era or context or a time, and how do we know and to whom and why? Because these questions are super interesting. Things like how do visible tattoos affect one's ability to be a good citizen? When we bring in or, the question becomes all these other things too. Is what does it mean to be a good citizen? But I also think when we're talking about studies of rhetoric, we're looking at how much of our own will do we have in that?
That's Garcia too. That's the way your body is read. He wrote in Lower Rio Grande Valley in Texas, but it's a way, and the article on enculturation that I did my presentation on for Justice class is about embodied rhetoric. That's the term.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you.
It's hugely important. If we're talking, Sarah, about bodies, that is a major keyword that you definitely want to look at. Now, what was he talking about?
Well, that's in our textbook. The Garcia one is about.
Oh, the Lone Star. Okay, got.
It's about the way your body is read. If you look a certain way,
right, in
the Lower Rio Grande Valley.
Right.
It's on enculturate, so it's free. The article, the Lin D-I-C-H, I don't know how to say the last name, did a Vietnamese rapper who is using imagery and technology to protest, and it has it's a swear word on his hashtag F communism is on his neck.
Okay.
And so you can look at the way the tattoos, and this is a paraphrase of an argument I tried to make with that article, is that electing to put that on your body is a way to modify the way people will read you because you put it there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making a statement whether or not you meant to. And then even if you did, even if it's, you kind of lose control over the way other people are going to read it once you've put it there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that it gets kind of complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. But it's and things change over time, and
like the tear, like I said about the spider web on the elbow, that
mm-hmm.
used to mean I was in jail.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that anymore. Now it just means I needed a tattoo that fit my elbow, and this is the shape everybody uses.
I have dry elbows. I like to cover them.
Doesn't mean that anymore. And the tears, you'll see, the one side means something, the other side means another thing.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, I don't know. Does that still mean what it used to?
I don't know.
So that alone,
everything gets appropriated.
Well, it's like murder.
That's
right? Yeah,
good point.
Absolutely, for sure. Does it mean what it did, or is it? Certainly the spider web has become that. Now it's just what you get there. But it came from a place where you'd see that and it was all okay. Right?
Yeah. So, and I said, okay, so what and how do these mean, and to whom in what way? Because agency is a difficult thing to trace within your rhetorical studies, because like, where does meaning come from and who has the power to change it? And individuals can't do it, and it's informed by commonplaces, and it becomes the air we breathe, or it doesn't. Some things are visible and they're not. And so sometimes we have big surges of mind shifts, and kind of seismic shifts that happen, but only kind of partially. So that the world that we see on the other side of Trayvon Martin and Black Lives Matter largely looks different from us. So, did anybody watching the Watchmen series?
Not yet.
No. Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
You're the only one I've ever heard who has a report for me. Okay.
So, I mean, I only seen the episodes that are there, but it's about, I mean, he said when he's putting it together that, the thing that there's no way I can talk about anything but race. It would just not make sense. And so.
Really?
Oh my gosh. I'm thinking about when I teach the critical theory class, I'm definitely going to focus on critical race theory and feminist rhetoric. And this thing just, I mean, I read Watchmen a bazillion years ago, but all I really know is that it's just a super nuanced, complex account of good and bad. And so, yeah, this one opens with the just decimation of what was called Black Wall Street in 1921, and just everybody gets murdered, and just it's atrocious. And then we actually do give reparations through a very long, multi-year presidency of Robert Redford. So people who are it's difficult to see who are the good guys, who are the bad guys. Now, a lot of the power is held by African Americans, and Vietnam is now a state. So I don't know quite what that means yet, but
that's an extension of because in the comic they sent Dr. Manhattan in to end the Vietnam War.
Oh,
the
and that's
reason
why
Nixon carries on and is not impeached is because he won Vietnam.
Oh, that's okay. That's why
they sent Dr. Manhattan in, and they couldn't wait to surrender.
I don't blame him. That's a big guy.
And they used the comedian as a mercenary, and so they exploited the superheroes. The only one with any actual powers was Dr. Manhattan, but the others were just basically mercenaries. So Vietnam didn't end badly, and America never went through that. We lost a war or that protest that came out of stopping this, and it picks up as if none of that ever happened. So that's the point in the history of the timeline that Watchmen changes. If there's one, there's still fear and nuclear war, and the chapters all take place on that doomsday clock towards midnight. So there's still global concerns about nuclear power, which America has to worry less about, because with Dr. Manhattan, you could stop any of that just because it's not going to hurt him.
Well, Dr. Manhattan's on Mars. You're right now, Dr. Manhattan.
Yes.
And so we have something called the White Night, where all the cops, most of them were murdered, and I mean, this is at the beginning too. So all of the cops wear masks, and
like the Rorschach mask.
Really? But not the Rorschach mask. They have their. I mean, it seems like I saw images of it. It's just a yellow kind of tall turtleneck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's a whole gang of we assume counterterrorism terrorists who are wearing the Rorschach masks, and some cops get killed, and so. It just, instead of storming like on The Wire, the cops would come in and storm the projects where were filled with African American citizens who may or may not have had anything to do with it. They storm what's called Nixonville, which is a trailer park with the cartoon Nixon up right. You gotta see it. It's so interesting. And every time you think you've got it, it's gone someplace bizarre else. And so
I've been afraid.
Oh, you'll love it. I'm hearing great things about it too. All right, so back to this.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think that's another interesting place to explore. I kept thinking about it as I was reading lynching.
That's going to pull at that conference. That's going to pull Watchmen out of the woodwork. That's next year. I guarantee it. Next year it's going to be old Watchmen. And there'll be more Evangelion soon because Netflix managed to secure the rights. So that's on. Wow. People are going to start writing on Evangelion again, which is an anime that was huge in
like the
late 90s, right? Yeah, it was. It's got a lot of philosophical questions in it. Of course. Yeah. So that's
interesting.
That'll start writing about that again.
Yeah, you guys got to get your next one prepped. Yeah. Okay, so she's talking about her interest in claiming the bicycle and tattoos. I was thinking this is just like, again, this is not the direction necessarily that Sarah should go, or even I think she wants to go given the ways that she's talking about it up there, but I just wanted to offer some suggested ways that you might situate your particular project within this larger conversation. So it could look something like this. To maybe, so Hallenbeck explores the ways in which groups of women at a particular time and place, America at the turn of the 19th century, used bicycles to force society to change in ways that they could. They're kind of understanding what it means to be a good woman or a good citizen if we're using that framework. That's a rhetorical intervention to the commonplace understandings of gender. So maybe like a starting place. I don't know if women's rhetorical issues of tattoos around that same time function. Similarly, I don't know if any women had tattoos. I assume they probably did. I don't know. Maybe those wild flappers did tattoos or something.
But it's a way to take, if we, at the risk of over reducing this stuff, the bicycle was the masculine thing that women adopted, but a version of. And tattoos, very masculine thing that women have adopted versions of. So it's not, I don't think it's too hard to say. If she wants to take those two things, it's really, in my head, very easy to smash those together. And then the previous discussion about attitudes of society, that's a way to narrow that down if you wanted to focus on the way you're read. Then the Garcias, it's embodied rhetoric. That's what it is in broad embodied rhetorics. But the narrow scope, the tiny thing, is the adoption of tattoos, and then you're just connected to this class by way of bicycle.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm trying to shove it deep into history, like at the turn of the century. But I think what you're saying fits better with what she's talking about. The
Rosie
contemporary.
the Riveter did at that time. Did women get tattoos? That would be where I would look. When women started working in factories, when women there were relaxing of societal attitudes towards, was it okay then for women to get tattoos? I don't know.
And was it a matter of also belonging too? Because I don't know. So do sororities do tattoos? Because I know like black fraternities do brands.
That'd be a good place to check too.
But
we have some of that on campus.
We do, and I'm sure that there are people who have written about that kind of thing because the whole idea of branding oneself. Like literally branding oneself. I've seen them while they're healing. It's wild. But anyway, so one of the things I want to demonstrate here is that this can go like a bunch of different directions. So it could be that she ends up looking at tattoos like more generally or at a particular time, or I don't know, tattoo. And the issues that you're talking about in terms of gender and gender differences over time is really interesting. Maybe there happens to be some kind of a couple of groups in some, I don't know, they're probably in Paris getting tattoos. I don't know. But they're like, hey, that's that. I get it. I'm one of you. Here's our people. So let's see. And, and I guess now people are kind of getting these sort of old school tattoos that look, they're kind of black and white ones that look almost like the, 30s tattoos, but they're crisp. Tech is so much better. And we've got technology rhetoric. Okay. So, okay. And again, I am not at all suggesting this should go this way, but in your bibliography and in your final project, if you choose to go a text route, this is the kind of thing that you would probably do. I'm gonna introduce my annotated bibliography by situating my project within the larger conversation, the things that inform it, the kinds of things that Brian was suggesting, the things that Sarah already said. So prose could be something like, in claiming the bicycle, Hallenbeck argues blank, whatever it is she argues. Turning to blank, the archival materials that Hallenbeck uses in some general terms, these tech manuals and patents. She asks whatever her research question is. In the proposed project, I explore the ways in which women in whatever period may have similarly claimed the tattoo in order to, maybe like a direct quote, repeating the research question, driving Hallenbeck's research and applying it to your own. In doing so, I join a growing number of rhetoricians who turn to technology, in this case tattoos, to understand the ways in which oppressed groups have historically garnered the rhetorical agency necessary for public deliberation. You can list things like maybe rhetoric of everyday things. There could be some citations from that you already mentioned. The following annotated bibliography lays the groundwork for the proposed rhetorical historiography by drawing together existing publications, offering insights into different aspects of the following question. And this is hers. How did tattoos and even the use of bicycle, and I might take that out if you were going to go this route, but you don't need to influence society's perception of what makes a good citizen. So to that end, I'm going to pay particular attention to things like rhetorical constructions of the good citizen, for example, Vera, and I just list them because you're going to annotate them later, and rhetorical histories of tattoos over space and time. Ultimately, the proposed rhetorical historiography traces the ways in which I'm just randomly picking topics out of the sky, the ways in which African-American women have utilized tattoos to influence society's perception of the historically oppressed group from date to date across whatever region. I don't exactly know how that would work, but hey, Whitey. However, at this point, I will not limit my search to any particular group or period, which is perfectly fine. Kind of get a lay of the land. That's what this can be. I'll broaden my scope to consider the ways in which other technologies might limit and shape what and how things construct meanings. She can also look at accessibility, the differences between the ways tattoos function in prison or in wartime. Not just what they get on their arms and wherever else, but also the technologies that they use, like you were saying, to do. Especially with respect to the other thing, like the ways in which other technologies limit and shape what and how things, a rhetoric of things, kind of construct meanings, especially with respect to their relationships to and with other things, citations of other things, and also places. See, it's just for all over the place. But you don't know which of these areas is going to bear fruit, and so I don't see any need at this point. This is an exploratory project, not a limiting one. So, what's out there? Where's the hot spot? I know I'm kind of interested in these key terms, but where's the hot spot? So let's see. And then this is where I draw from her midterm projects, especially important since she's dealing with good citizen. Especially important to this study will be the notion of the good citizen. For example, a good citizen rhetorically, not morally or intrinsically in any way. Your midterm project's got you there for sure. Draw from insights there. In fact, maybe with a nip and tuck and expansion here or there, that could even be, or even just like an infographic you drop in there, a thing explanation can function as part of the introduction to the annotated bibliography. So the keywords good citizen. And then suggesting, I mentioned the personal stuff. So this is like, my study's going to kind of be like claiming the bicycle, but I'm going to look at tattoos. Here's some of the other broader things that I might want to look at because I don't quite know where the hot spot is that I'm going to find, but I'm interested in this. And then ease in, you could turn then to your own lived experiences. So, maybe some of her own lived experiences, maybe in her tattooed body right now, where she's mentioned her friends. This could be the place for that if she feels like the friend portion is not necessarily going to yield what she wants. But she could also have a citation or an annotation or two of an informal interview with a friend or two that she thinks might produce some good information. That a friend, somebody actually who kind of grew up with us, has a tattoo shop that does piercings, and he's full of good stories because he's also really involved with piercings, like shows where they pierce his back and suspend him from the ceiling. I know. I'm like, Like, I grew up with this kid. What are you hanging like a ceiling, like a wind chime or something?
I can't even
Oh,
be in the room with that on the TV.
No.
No.
Quit showing that to me, Richard.
No.
But anyway, it's a whole thing. I would love, I mean, I certainly would talk to him about it. I just don't want to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Words are fine.
So here's something she could possibly say, something like, my own interest in this topic is not merely academic. In date, place, I received my first tattoo at the time. Why did I, if you want to say, I don't know if it's relevant, because she mentioned that there were some stories that she thought made this topic particularly compelling. And so I'm thinking that some of those might be really juicy ways to kind of goose and inform the direction this might take. Fodder, basically. So she said, I was surprised when maybe something specific about something that you learned about society's perception of tattoos and assumptions that people tend to have about tattooed bodies. Over the next X years, I would continue to X more tattoos. I don't know to what end or to mean what did you mean them to mean, and how were they read and or not read, and how do and have people responded to you when your tattoos are visible or mentioned or both?
So if you were taking like the project of looking at either gendered reads of tattoos or a period and attitudes, societal, right, tattoos like that, it would be a historiography.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were looking at why'd you get your tattoos, you could be building an archive.
Well,
broad strokes.
Sort of. What I kind of suggest is that the in the way that I framed it here is this would just be kind of some rhetorical moves that one might make, like in an introductory chapter to a dissertation that says, this is why I'm interested in this, and these are the kinds of questions that drew me to this topic, and I will be bringing these lived experiences with me to these materials. And it could be that means that because you are interested in these contemporary questions and in this space and time, that maybe turning back to other spaces and other times can then in a like a fourth chapter or something help using that respond to the questions that you raised in the introduction.
Okay.
Maybe. But you could also, her tattoos could be archives. In order to get into an academic study and not a local history, they would have to, pull out, maybe it could be like her attempt to theorize rhetorics of citizenship through the tattoo choices that she and her friends made. But then that would have to be kind of situated within a broader history of the ways in which other scholars in rhetoric and composition have made use of. Does that make sense?
So it's not enough academically to say that they are. You have to situate them as.
Right, because what have others discovered about tattoos in other situations, and so by knowing that and that the Burkean parlor a bit, then we can then return to the tattoos.
Because I wouldn't use citizenship if I were trying to do that. I would use nostalgia.
But nostalgia is in some ways, I think, and again, a gore, I'm thinking like, it sounds like that's like a way to sort of block citizenship in some ways, My nostalgia, like, make America great again. You're not part of that.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I guess we're part of it, but
I'm not sure.
I don't know where you are.
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. Because I was afraid that just as written, being interested in the stories behind the tattoos, to me, read like nostalgia. Now, obviously, if those tattooed people are not like us, it has a connection to citizenship, but if it sounded the way she wanted to explore it, was the personal, what's the story behind your tattoo?
Yeah.
So that might not be a one-to-one for citizenship.
Well, but I mean, it depends on how we're defining it, right? If we're not being a little bit, we're thinking more in terms of like belonging and not belonging again, or,
Okay.
so like, who are you, one of us, or, or how do you show it? And I think about the kids at my local grocery store who have worked the checkout stand, and they've got the giant earlobes, and they have to take their earrings out. So they end up with.
So it just hangs.
No, they have to wear Band-Aids on them.
Serious?
Because I don't know, you might get excited or someone can see how old it is. But some of these stories, certainly I could see like a couple of annotations that might pull from, in informal conversations that really get at a story that's that's like, this is really telling. It's this. I will never forget this story, and it tells me something about the ways in which my body is bred, or the relationship between me and the pictures that I put on my body. So as long as it's not focused merely on, the tattoos as kind of an individual thing, like a history of, I got these tattoos because it reminded me of my mother and that kind of thing by itself. But it's actually like, other studies of familial relationships that are established that way, or something like that. Or
like tattoos as tributes, tattoos as memorials, tattoos.
Right. And but in the context of our class, especially since we deal so heavily with oppression, which is absolutely out of our hands, looking at the ways in which bias is perpetuated, I think, in terms of bias and not too. And also, you talked about nostalgia, the ebbs and flows of what's cool to put on your body, because even just taking the band name off, right? This guy was talking about this damn dolphin he had, or this friend who had a heart on her hand, and it drove her nuts because it was great when she was a teenager, but she just thinks it looks trashy.
It seemed like there was a trend to print like made in USA or made in. My friend had one that said made in Korea. He's born in Korea,
Mm-hmm.
or like a barcode or something. Like
the
trends.
barcodes, yeah, I remember that.
Was there for a while. People would tattoo that too, wherever. So
yeah. No, I agree. It's interesting. And so, what did he do with them? And then, yeah,
they're tied to certain scenes, music scenes, or certain imagery. They've adopted certain specifics. There's those. When you go into any tattoo shop, there's those cut and paste. Like if you don't know what you want, but you insist on one today on vacation, you can get those. They have them like you move through the way they hang posters.
That's what I thought they all were.
What? No, you're kidding. You're kidding.
The ones you get as gumball shoes.
Yeah, but no, you can pick. I want like C7 there, right? But you don't want it.
So what do? You come in, you're like, I really want to X. Do you have a sketch of it, or are you just saying? I mean, how do you get it custom?
Mine are all. None of mine were off the wall.
No, but what did you do? Did you come in with a sketch, or what?
I said I want a bird.
Oh, a bird.
Full stop.
Okay.
I want a bird. He said, "Can it be a big bird?" I said, "Sure." I left with this.
Okay.
Not in one shot. It was colored and then outlined. It took 2 sittings, but this one is so hard.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a minute.
All right, sure.
I'll just do it that way. I'll struggle in the hallway.
We have to know. What is he doing out there?
Yeah.
So in the annotated bibliography, again, just to kind of keep it super broad, draw on or sign text where relevant. Certainly make extensive use of the bibliographies of those publications that you think are most relevant. But also outside research, use as much as you can scholarship in rhetoric and composition, and maybe like communication studies. But you're also going to probably want things like histories of tattoos, cultural histories, media studies, or any of that kind of stuff. So all of that is going to be. So
Yes, I drew the opposite. I drew a picture, and then the top of the guitar turned into a rose.
Oh, and he did the.
But he drew the opposite. He said, because my picture was top heavy.
Oh,
He said, proportionally on your arm, it wouldn't make any sense.
this makes sense. Yeah.
So he had the guitar come out of the flower instead of the guitar turn into the flower.
So
I
do you
saw
know
it
what's
all.
happening when he's doing?
No, he shows me.
Oh, he says it's okay.
He draws it before he puts it on me.
Okay.
This I had no clue. This I saw a sketch of. But this he had drawn. He said because I showed him, it was a real rudimentary. It was like this is what it should look like. And he took that a couple days later when I went back for the appointment. He said, "This is what I did. Here's why. Is this okay?" And if I had said no, he wouldn't. I mean, he wasn't going to lock me into it.
Sure.
But he said for where you're putting it and what it needs to do, like it top head, it doesn't make sense from a proportion. And I just trusted him to do it. So that's
looks
what it's
great. Yeah. So, but when you, so when you're doing this, you know, I mean, you may. We just don't know what you're going to find. I mean, what we're going to. And if you do a study like this, you're looking at tattoos, you might end up with this. Like, I don't know. Wouldn't it be cool to read a study about like the rhetorics of drunken, embarrassing tattoos or something like that, or like the rhetorics of erasure? You know what?
Which of these do you regret?
Which are you regret? Exactly. You know, and oh my gosh, tattoo culture surrounding bronies. I wonder what they do, right? Do they get their favorite ponies? It's just all of that's just so interesting. So again, Sarah, I'm just spitballing there. That is not your project. If you want it to be your project, that's great. I am not committed to it at all. You just inspired me, and I was trying to shape something up. So I wanted to talk about how the personal fits in and how all this broadness fits in. So that said, who wants to talk about the final project? Are you still where you are? Or
Yeah, I guess.
Let's see if we can get some keywords.
It's got more to do with citizenship than I thought it did when I talked about it in the first place.
Everything does to me now.
Because I keep thinking of the pre-chorus to that particular song that I want to examine is decide right now what side you're on. Like,
it's the title. That's great.
When we after 9/11 and to refresh the memories, it's about the specificity and role of post 9/11 war rhetoric in songs, in protest bands specifically. And I did that became. I mean, you were with us, you were against us. Why aren't you wearing a flag pin? Right? All of the things that suddenly became so important that 2 weeks prior were literally insignificant. They didn't matter, and it became a way to say, if you're not with us, you're against us, and that's the belonging, the sense of in-group, out-group is how I would do it. But that's citizenship essentially.
Yeah,
what
it
became.
is.
You're un-American if you're not behind this drum up to war. If you're doubting, if you have questions, if you're not, a fan of all, 100% of the response to 9/11, then you're somehow not American.
So, American. And it's hasn't let up a ton.
No. No, it's actually just become sort of how it is.
Can you, as a politician, not wear a flag pin? I don't think you can still.
It depends. I mean,
I'm going to have to look at lapels. But if you're a president, you can't. You have to wear one. Obama just...
Yeah, he couldn't wear a tan suit. So,
okay.
Apples and oranges. But, because I see it, I still see the lapel pins for sure. I wore one for a while when I was in a poli-sci classes at county college at the time, and we were doing voter drives and stuff, and I wore a suit, and I wore an American flag lapel pin just to be safe. I just thought it was less likely to dismiss me as this kind of sort of organizing force there, insofar as we were small. We did have a debate. We did some stuff, but to keep from being dismissed, because I know how it can be like, it's just, you don't know what you're talking about kind of thing. So I just wore a suit and I put the play. And all the time. It does. It changes the way people respond to you. It shouldn't, but it does.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, my concern is that the bibliography is going to be split, like, because it's equally concerned now with war rhetoric and the way government specifically commands certain behavior. So there are ties to the mental hygiene stuff, because that's a dictation of how you need to be. But it's also, I guess it's the same. It's still citizen. It became American, like citizenship by, like, not even. It's bigger than that. It's like capital A American, like correct, right? It bled into
non-Muslim,
yeah,
white Christian.
Don't ask, right? This is how it is. This is don't question don't question the government became the official position, and that's like, wait a minute, what country are we in for a minute?
Yeah.
That lady who flipped off the motorcade won.
Oh God, that's so.
Yeah. I gotta wait for my phone to boot up, but I got a picture of the brawl from the note. I took a picture of it. I'll show you. It was a woman on a bike flipping off the Trump motorcade.
Oh, really? I've seen her interviewed a couple of times.
She lost her. I think she lost her job.
She did. They fired her.
And now she's an elected representative. Yeah. Oh. On that platform. She said at the time, I was making my opinion known the only way I could on a bike. She said I was on a bike.
Right there. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's interesting. So,
and if someone wants to do it, we still have those signs all over campus, native bees in the area. Woman who flipped off Trump wins election.
Oh yeah, and we looked at some of those.
And this is that sign I just told you about. Native bees. We have these on campus. Native bees in the area.
Oh my God! Yay! Well, good.
Citizenship for bees.
Citizenship bees.
I thought it was so absurd. I had to take a picture of it. What do you mean native bees? Not those immigrant bees?
Okay, so what's the name of this band?
Boy Sets Fire.
Okay, that's good.
All one word.
Okay, and this was why do I think Reagan's associated with it?
Who?
I thought Reagan was on a cover that you showed me or something. I think it must have been an early thing you were thinking of, like a compilation.
Rage Against the Machine, Evil Empire.
Oh, is that what you? Is that what I was
early? It was a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
It became this
because I think the question was like, why is politics not involved anymore?
Yeah,
like
which is also what I'm doing in Jess's class. There's a citizen that Camp America is the name of the tune I'm working for her class. Where they took for a video all the reports from these detention centers, like drinking out of toilets and stuff, and the music video has white kids doing it. So that's
interesting.
I mean, they're similar, but that's more a visual. And it turned out, just in the cursory research I've been doing, Camp America is a legitimate organization. Like, it's a real. I don't know if they knew that at the time, and that's why their song is named that. But that I'm struggling with how to integrate that video, because we're not supposed to make an argument. Well, I guess I'm not making an argument. I'm showing an argument someone else is making. Right. No, that's my way around.
Yeah, that's smart rhetorical history, rhetorical analysis. So the personal connection part of it. This is a. Have you seen this band?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I mean, if it's of interest to put that bit in, and it's in part for you too to say, okay, what's the hot spot
to connect the two projects? That's the problem. This happened when the Rock Against Bush compilations were coming out. There was Punk Voter is still up. Someone's maintaining the site. It's defunct now, but this scene was tied to marches, tied to voter drive, tied to activism. It wasn't just we don't like it. It was we don't like it. Meet us on the White House lawn next Thursday. It wasn't just. So that's the scene that I'm used to, and now I can't find it now. So what bridges the two? I find one song from not even a punk band. This is Vic Metz. I think he's a hip hop artist. The band he's in is called 93 Punks, but stylistically the music isn't from the community I expect it from, and I don't see it nearly as widespread. I mean, in the Bush years, you couldn't spit without hitting a protest record, and now it's like, well, where is all that now?
Well, it's interesting. It is in the hip hop community because they have a whole consciousness section. It's not literally called that. And it's just political, socio-political. I don't listen to it, but I've heard several of it. It's really interesting. But there is no such category, and
that's what links sort of the two projects. If they were going to exist in one book, like if they were going to be printed together as chapters, the research question, what I don't understand is why can I spit without hitting a protest record when I couldn't during the George W. Bush years? Why was that, which was bad? But what is happening now, in my opinion, is demonstrably worse in some respects. There isn't a war at the moment like there was with Iraq, but we are literally putting children in cages. And
it's worse. It's definitely worse.
In some respects, there's an argument to be made that body count is lower since there is not a war at the moment. But
we are terrorizing our own citizens.
It is a pretty charitable situation to say, right? So why I can't account, and I won't ever be able to answer that in this semester with these two projects I have. But the question, the reason, if they were going to go in a book together, the research question is why?
Yeah.
Like, why isn't there?
Well, okay, so in this context, there isn't information to answer that question, but the studies that you do can maybe see, okay, so what kinds of things can we see happening? Can we see people doing? What kinds of, how were people grabbing, rhetorical agency to do the kinds of things that they wanted to do politically? I mean, sometimes the zeitgeist of the times change, and there have been arguments in, the super far left activist community. There was an upsurge for a while in the 90s. We thought, there was going to be a revolution, and then 9/11 happened, and it was over. So there was some really significant demonstrations going on up in Silicon Valley. I mean, they weren't making the news, but things were happening. Things seemed to be revving up according to people who were involved in it. I wasn't. But 9/11 shut it down because of fear, because of actually literal threats.
And that's why this band for this project, because they couldn't stay on the indie. Like 9/11 happened, they didn't have a record. They rushed out an EP with this one particular song on it ahead of time. And they were on a little of it at the time. Don't quote me on this one. I think they were on Wind Up, some little New York City label. And they were in talks. Sony distributed for them, but they didn't own the label. They just handled distribution. After that, any talk of them moving, because bands, like a little band from New Jersey called Thursday, actually moved to Island Def Jam at this time. Bands were getting promoted out of this scene, a few of them, but not these. That all talk stopped.
So these are Jersey local?
No, Boys as Fires from Newark, Delaware. But they were in the pedigree of this New Jersey band that was Island Def Jam. Like a few bands that had in a music that was never commercially very popular. Thrice did it. They're still major label. I forget who they're on now, but they did. Probably Island for them too. But I'd have to check. A few of the bands that were heavier and dabbled in protest music were getting promoted, right? We're getting commercial backing, major label support. These guys went a different way because no one could touch them after that. Their songs got more pointed. They got more. There's some imagery in this particular song I won't touch for this class because it's inappropriate, but it makes a direct comparison between this war rhetoric and pretty sexually explicit. It's a violent act being done along those lines.
Right, yeah. But it's the violation of lack of autonomy
and the other bands that had kind of dabbled in it after 9/11, some of them stopped. I mean, there was the record that came out, the Thrice record that came out, had a song title, and it was originally going to be called "We Are the Dead." It's not about 9/11. It's not a protest. So, but out of concern of how that would be read, they changed the name of the song. These guys were like, "No, we don't stop. We do it more because there's a reason to." They saw this build up coming, and
were the ones that succeeded, were they less likely to add the get mad now do something part to it? Would they just be kind of just to get mad? Because these guys are like saying, let's hit the streets, let's do this.
Well, the whole scene, to an extent, did that. Labels put out those compilations, so by extension, everybody on wine. No, we did it right. I have to check. Everybody on that label, by extension, was affiliated with. Obviously, they had to check if it was okay. So a lot of people did new recordings, but the scene as a whole was still complaining about it. But it was. Some of them took a step back after 9/11, did things like change the name of songs so they didn't offend people. Some of them did. Some of them stopped foregrounding the protest. I mean, that the next Thursday record that came out, it's called War All the Time, and it has a song about living in the shadow of New York City, because New Brunswick and New York City and Palisades Cliff, it's all the same general region, but then it's only got couple songs, but they never had full records, so arguably they did more of the same. But these guys just know it went from general capitalism is bad, war on drugs is bad, to this specific behavior is wrong. This is what they're doing. They're moving us into a war. This isn't abstract anymore. When it became real, they called out specific behavior.
Well, you need a section then that says that trajectory, that leading up to that movement, and I think to the 9/11, and then what happens, and and then I guess finding out what else is out there. The other thing I would suggest is your way in personally is this particular scene, like there's a club that's associated with a lot of your, like you have tickets or something like that. It's just like
I don't have my ticket stubs anymore, but
this
I
is
had
that
found
part of that.
There was a club in New Jersey that I found that archives the shows that they had.
And you've been to that one a lot.
I've been to Virgil Shore.
And you saw these guys?
I've seen that band a handful of times.
Okay, so then I would, so were you
I watched Joan Jett play. She was the surprise at a festival the last night. They always had a headline and they never told you who it was, with the singer and the guitar player from that band.
How fun. I saw her at the beach sculptures in Corpus on spring break when I was a teenager. But do you feel like personally this scene politicized you?
Hard to say how I would have ended up at the time.
Well, I guess you can't quite know, but
yeah, I mean, because it's a very short step between trying to figure out what the heck all the big words in this Bad Religion song meant.
Oh God, yes.
God, he got better over time. You couldn't listen to that song without a dictionary.
I couldn't.
Right?
I learned so much from so what the heck is apartheid, man?
Words like
the minor threat taught me all
sorts of stuff. Like I had to look these words up because I had no idea what he was talking about. But yeah, it was a very short step between that and this stuff. But before that, the heavy metal I was into before this wasn't necessarily as political. Pantera had a song all about like the Great Southern Trendkill was to protest like what is popular is fake, is plastic, is so from the heavy metal that led into this stuff. Didn't have a political bent per se, but did the kind of cultural stuff. There's a line on that track. If Pierce the New Hole, if hell was in you, sell your soul. Like this was from that, right? So kind of protesty, but not pointed like the government is bad. So that was sort of the transition musically for me, because it sounded similar. It was heavy, like this band particularly heavy, a little less screamy than the metal was, but it was close enough. to where it wasn't. And then at the drive-in had a record that got everybody on both sides together. That was the band. They're not a protest band. They're actually from Texas at the drive-in.
So I was just throwing some keywords down while and they weren't keywords, just things just I flipped off the motorcade, but just things that you're saying: rock against Bush, punk, voter, 9/11 rhetoric, flag pins, if you're with us, against us, war rhetorics, and of course the enemy rhetorics that I just read about. Now the rhetorics of us and them. Protest music has got this long history of, right, of course, with punk and politics. But I think what you'd be looking for is just sort of going to
it's like what war rhetoric did to citizenship.
I like that. That's it.
That's
yeah.
it in a sentence, because it bridges the things that the specificity of the songs became. This is wrong instead of this concept is wrong.
Right.
And it bridges that with the rebelling of the attitude of no, we're not with you.
Right.
We're American, and it's American to not be with you.
Right. And I think so sort of exploring those kinds of things is a good place for this. But this document doesn't have to close any loops. In fact, it can open them up. So trying to pull things together or try to, like, it's you're going to have likely things that you feel maybe in your gut might be connected, but you don't really know what's out there. I mean, you may end up, going down a hole that takes you to protest music that was really popular in ragtime. I have no idea if that might be the case, but and then that might somehow begin to serve as like a model for what you think you might do with this. I don't know. We don't know what's out there, so this is just sort of make it wide enough so that you can maybe run across something that you don't even you hadn't even anticipated, right? And so, like, we've talked about this before. Other projects, you kind of really want a solid game plan going in. And I'm pro gun control, so I'm going to find gun control against you. There's a pack, but we don't know, man. We have no idea what's going on with this band. The history. It's not, and the history will be important part of it. Not necessarily for this document. I think maybe just like a paragraph or something. And I think some of the archival materials that you found, like, so it was the punk vote
it's a site that was when you would buy the compilation records or you would see the flyers, they would be tied to vote. They ran voter drives. Not this band specifically. Labels were doing this. This was this
whole thing is so interesting. It was a full infrastructure.
It was a whole but it was also they didn't have the money of Sony, but Sony did distribute for a number of these because they wanted to be involved when it started to get popular, but not be too involved. So then when things like this could happen, they could pick and choose who came with them. They had
and the vote is an interesting, like, seemingly radical and political choice that is kind of tame, and so because it really, all I can picture is Madonna wrapped in a flag saying "Rock the vote." so maybe that's the moment where we're like, oh, I'm not playing at all. This game's rigged. America's America. What are we voting for?
That's most of the Rage Against the Machine lyrics protesting, mentioning the fact that structure set never changes with a ballot vote. That was their perspective. The system doesn't work when you work within it. Mm-hmm. Different music, different genre, different scene, but that was definitely there. It was, we can't do anything about it except scream about it. This was, no, we can if we get together.
So, this is just so we were talking about optimism. There's the world is burning down around us, but we can do this, brothers and sisters. Let's get together, 60s style.
There's definitely Vietnam analog to that. That's
Vietnam protest music.
Sure.
That's the place.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's the easy one. And I was thinking about the image. I don't know if it's even a real picture, but when I showed you that woman with her hands out for the Black Lives Matter movement, the flower and the gun.
Yes.
The image for that. I don't even know if that's a real picture, but I know the lore around it.
I mean, I think it is. I've seen it in my mind, but don't we also think that there's a movie that has there's this phenomenon apparently that we manufacture collectively some sort of history.
That's what I'm afraid with that picture, because I've never actually seen it. I've just heard about it.
Yeah, I have seen it maybe. My mind thinks it has. We will talk more about this, but in the interim, before we have our conferences, again, they're optional, but I really do hope, I love to have these conversations, so I hope you guys will do that. Exploratory, wide open, you don't need to make decisions. If you're concerned that the pieces don't fit together, it doesn't matter, because you know that these are possible tracks. That's why to make a series of keywords that you might. Try not to keep the end in mind. Try just to think about, okay, I'm interested in this whole political infrastructure surrounding this series of bands and the whole apparatus of voting and so forth, and right up to the moment of 9/11 and the implosion. And you're not going to recreate right now, except you probably will pull some articles, I think. But no one necessarily recreate right now the specific, indisputable official history of that, because we're really kind of more interested in the way people kind of make things mean things, or get things reduced to not meaning anything, like we were talking about bodies being read and doing the reading. And you also don't have to close off or make any decisions about genres either, because as you yourself moved across a couple of genres, and cross-pollination is common, but it's interesting the ones that seem to, how people seem to circulate. I don't know how many people go necessarily from punk to indie. I guess I get old.
Well, the coolest thing, the circle I can't square is now, I know I'm bridging the two projects, but if I were to, the problem is it has totally skipped on. I mean, Kanye said Georgia Bush doesn't care about black people. It was in hip hop too, but now I only see it there.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't see it. Now I know hardcore is, if there's only a few recent bands, as a scene, it's not very healthy right now. So that probably has a lot to do with it. But I don't know for sure why it isn't everywhere.
I don't know where it is. I'm going to take my 71-year-old mom to a Flaming Lips concert tomorrow. There is going to be no politics there. I like confetti. But yeah, I don't know where it is either. And that is an interesting question. But I think the more interesting question is how do they do what they did? And then what the hell happened? and I mean, we can't really know what the hell happened, but we can know through rhetorical analyses and also the lyrics that you're bringing up. They're definitely worth bringing forward, I think, because that's part of the story, and the artifact, the actual visual part of it. And you needn't limit it to that band. It could all, because for you, at least, we don't know how these pieces fit together, but the Bush compilations are part of the story for you at least at this point. Yeah. Same era. Okay.
Same era, same scene.
Mm-hmm.
So it just.
So what was happening at the time Bush won?
I don't know how much of it. I mean, it could just be as simple as record labels are not as healthy as they were, because that's.
Yeah, but why is that though? And so.
Robots.
Yeah.
Robots did.
But I also think that, I mean, we can also argue, we ebb and flow, you get more conservative, less conservative. People want different things out of music. Music may play, maybe other things inform protest and agitation. I mean, we certainly have more politicized other forms of pop culture. I just talked to you about that Watchmen series. I mean,
that's a reimagining of something from the 80s.
Right. I mean, everything's sort of a redoing of that too, and it's kind of a hard environment to do that kind of thing in when we're. I mean, because Watchmen's known for making superheroes seem real, right? And
they're not good.
They're not good.
They're not.
It's human.
They're outlaws or something.
Well, they're illegal. there's an act passed that they're not allowed to exercise. So
They don't trust them.
they're illegal because they're not necessary anymore, right? The powers that use them has powers, so they're irrelevant now. They don't need it, so they're kind of washed up.
Yeah.
Laws have been passed. They're not allowed to do anything anymore. But also, like, they're as people. I mean, the comedian's a psychopath. He's a rapist. He's a murderer. He killed a kid for no reason. Like, he's a psychopath, and he's a mercenary in all the worst connotations of it. But when he had a function, when the government wanted to use him to fight war and do all this, he was okay. And then when he outlived his usefulness,
that's the story of the soldier in human form too.
Yeah.
So so the nuance apparently that was in that has gone, or the blockbuster movies we've watched. That's definitely not the Justice League, but and it's not Shakespeare, but The Wire. I mean, there's so much very politicized, social critiques that were not on in the early '90s. What were we watching then? I don't know what. Seinfeld, yeah. The kids were watching Saved by the Bell. You guys are too young for me, but yeah. Anyway, you know how political Seinfeld was. I did like that last episode. I thought they should have gotten their just desserts. All right, so now we've gone over, and so that's the final word, Seinfeld. It is. So let me know if you guys want to meet, and we can have this. I'm guessing I'll set aside half an hour, but we probably won't need more 15 minutes or so. But yeah, but you don't need to do it. But if you want to, and also look, I've got some little. If you don't use Google Scholar, there's a little bit about how to do that. There's a nice little video about how to do Google Scholar. And once you have the keywords, and then go to the popular journals, this list of popular journals somewhere here. Where is it? Anyway, I'll find it. But and what I want out of the citations. But we'll have a chance to get together before that. Oh, and that's what I was talking to in terms. What am I looking for? These direct things. What have others written about, like that band? Indirect. What have others written about things like your starting point? Protest music and so forth. What have others written about things like not exactly, but kind of adjacent to that, which might include stuff that's not exactly war, but as you were saying, like the American pen and that kind of stuff, and then things like models, like this is a really important place to go. It's like this study has nothing to do with anything that I care about at all, but the way they went about this study is totally what I want to do. So that would definitely be relevant as well. So, in fact, that's something that I really push hard for people working on dissertations with me, because once you find the thing, that's the thing I want to do, that is a game changer. So, but I think it's not relevant. Well, it is. Just do that. Well, I mean, just like going back to, do the tattoos with the bicycle study. So, all right, guys, thank you for another pleasurable conversation.